Live.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Ends Justify the Memes, the show where the lowest of the low, that is the most wretched of wretched and deplorable, to end all deplorables, two heterosexual Christian males from the American South talk about culture, philosophy, history, health, fitness, and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. I'm your host, Bill, and this is my producer and co host, Tank. So crack open a beer and lend us your ear because the ends always justify the memes. What you got there, Tank?
I'm
That
gonna.
looks fancy.
I'm drinking wine this stream.
Oh, wine. Wine is mighty fine. I'm doing sober October, so no beer for me.
Well,
But
wine doesn't count, so I'm gonna consider it sober October too. I mean, usually I have my usually I have my wine with cocaine, so I consider this, a laid back sober evening.
Right. Well, you got to balance it. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're gonna do cocaine, you got to balance it because you can't get too tweaked, man. Um, it yeah. What was I going to say? I don't know. I was thinking about sober October.
Yeah.
I was saying, oh, my liver needs to break after lockdown here because sitting around the house definitely had me drinking quite a bit more than usual. I do enjoy my beer, but I also have self control, and it's good to exercise self control now and again. So I hope everyone out there is doing fine, whether you're watching it tonight or replays. Um, we were discussing before the show, we're going to talk about, I think we're going to talk about some health and fitness stuff. We're going to tie it into some politics. And we're just going to go where the stream goes as usual because we like to keep the show loose. But before we do all that, let's get into the Memecast news.
And here we have Johnny Rotten.
Johnny Rotten. Johnny Rotten, the punk icon. So, guys, today is going to be a mix of tweets and memes and screenshots and whatnots. But Mr. Rotten has said he's voting for Trump, and that sent some people over the edge.
Wait,
He was saying,
doesn't he live in England? How's he voting for Trump?
I don't know. Or he says he supports Trump.
Oh,
He says, of
okay.
course I'm voting for Trump. He might be a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right.
But that was supposedly big news. I don't know why you care what a celebrity votes for, but yeah.
Isn't that weird
But
though? I was talking with someone about this the other day, about musicians and artists and how they're so plugged into politics, but like you don't ask your plumber who they're voting for. Like, what makes this particular occupation so special that we give a fuck who they're voting for?
I'm a chatty guy and I try to be nice to everybody and I'll talk to people. I remember I had my couch delivered some years ago and talked to the guys and they had a long drive out my way and I gave them some they came out from Baltimore, so it was like over an hour.
Right.
And I had to I gave them something to drink or whatever because they were like thirsty and they needed to use the bathroom. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. And so I might strike up a conversation with like the furniture mover guy with something like that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
eh, like
But
celebrities,
yeah. Yeah. But
I don't really care.
if
You
if
pretend for a living.
if your pizza delivery guy doesn't have an opinion on politics, though, no one cares. Like, if a celebrity doesn't have an opinion or stays out of it, it's like some big deal or something. I don't know. It's really strange.
Well, we saw this a while back with Morrissey too.
Yeah.
And Morrissey was getting very red pilled, if you would, and people were like, "Oh no, blah blah blah," and he's gay.
Yeah.
Like people don't understand how many gay folk, trans folk,
Mm.
Latinos, blacks, whatever they are pro Trump. But let's go to the next meme, man, because this was essentially the argument that
Uh,
was coming out of the left. It says you're not punk unless your social views align perfectly with every major corporation.
Taking a second
This
to
actually
load
looks
here.
just like a girl I used to work with.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I dated that girl.
Yeah, I never really dated a girl that tatted up, but I worked with this girl that at FedEx for a little bit when I was in between jobs and school, and worked for FedEx for a couple months till I ended up like screwing up my knee. And yeah, this girl was there, and I actually saw her. I went out one night with my wife and ran into her, and she was all like had the giant heels on,
Yeah,
like was all punked out. But yeah, it seems to be the case. I mean, it's like
yeah.
we've talked about before. Like what is so righteous about being having all these mainstream views? And if you hate the corporations or whatever so much, like, are you really a rebel? I mean, really, Gavin McGinnis made this point some years ago. Um, Gavin being the guy that essentially started the whole hipster scene,
Yeah.
and he's always been kind of punk rebel. And he's like, well, if the Republicans are hated so badly, is that really the true punk now?
I mean,
Or
there's
at
a
least
but there,
conservatism?
well, and I think you see these guys arguing with it that punk's pretty much always been counterculture, but now they're saying, well, punk has always been about liberty for marginalized groups or whatever, which I think is kind of bullshit. But and now they're saying that's just Amazon just happened to catch up to us. Like, yeah, okay, bro, definitely not.
Okay, except for uh I don't know what these supposed marginalized groups are being marginalized about,
Yeah.
other than I won't use your made up pronouns. Like, if you want me to call you some weird name, I mean, my personal pronouns are His Royal Majesty and Your Royal Majesty. So I'd appreciate it for now on if everyone would address me as such, and I will call you by your pronouns as well.
All right.
So let's go to the next one, man. And we got some Nazis here. It
Oh,
says, how could they all comply? We would never do that. They must have been brainwashed. And of course, they're wearing masks. Um,
yeah, they're taking a little
what was
bit
that
to
coming up on
load.
the screen?
Yeah, I've got it now. It's just taking a little bit to load for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. Um.
Not a big deal.
Okay.
But people don't seem to realize that the reason why people complied was simply because, one, violence and brutality, like Antifa and BLM, and two, because people thought it was the right thing to do, much like we were talking about the corporate backing of all these ideas. That it's not punk. It's not punk. What, are
Yeah.
you going straight for the bottleneck?
Yeah. I grabbed the wrong thing there. Okay.
So let's just go to the next one, man, because
Okay.
it's pretty much the same idea. And it says, think they even notice, and they're just social distancing and their little pins. This is insane, man.
My God, where is this?
It's up now. Oh,
Um.
you mean where's that where's that
Yeah.
at? I was watching the stream there. I don't know, but it looks like a concert or a convention, although I have a hard time believing that's a Biden convention.
Yeah. There's not that many people to be showing up for a Biden
No.
convention for sure.
No, and in fact, I almost had a screenshot this week for the Arizona rally, in which the journalist was outside the rally saying, "Oh, we're not sure. Like, this isn't a typical rally. We don't see anybody outside." It's like, yeah, because no one shows up. There's no enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But look, folks, stop being sheeple. All right, that's all I got to say about it. Quit being lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah. I don't know why these are taking so long to load, but they are.
Probably because you have us up on screen, and I can
Yeah.
see that the live stream has us skipping a little bit.
Yeah.
So technical difficulties to work out. So this one, happy birthday song, danger, study, song may spread COVID. with a P and B sounds. He says, when you're running out of ways to fearmonger. I mean, this was on the 5, so I'm sure they all made fun of it except for Juan Williams.
Oh,
Um,
oh
I'm
my
not even sure
God.
why Juan Williams is on Fox, but
The happy birthday song is now dangerous. This is where we're at, guys. This is the world we live in.
yes.
God.
Of course, the next meme, I've actually been sitting on this for a couple of weeks, but just couldn't fit it into the show. Says, he died of natural causes. It says, you pushed him off a roof. Gravity is natural. Okay, I'll record it as a coronavirus.
What the fuck? Yeah, this is. Yeah, you know, I think a lot. I've seen a lot more people start coming around to this. Even people that are not, I guess, right wing or whatever you want to call it, have starting to call more bullshit on what's going on. Because the World Health Organization, the CDC, just can't make up their minds on what's going on. So here we are.
Apparently, it's airborne now.
Yeah,
Wasn't airborne before.
After it was, and then it wasn't.
Shouldn't wear a mask either. Oh no, wait a minute, got to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Netherlands is talking about having a lockdown now, going into a short period of a lockdown because of the rising caseload. The interesting thing, though, and I've covered this on All Minus One. That's number one, folks. All Minus One. That's my regular YouTube channel, aside from this live stream. Like, if you look at it, man, there's just a big spike and everything drops off, and we've had like higher caseloads, but the death rate isn't really going up.
Right.
So what are we afraid of? And most of those spikes too, we know where they were at. 70% of the people were in nursing homes and whatever else.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, it says here the elderly Dutch woman has become the first known person to die from catching the coof twice, according to experts, raising serious questions about how long immunity and antibodies can last. And of course, the dude posted, forever known as the double Dutch.
The double Dutch.
So, not to be confused with the Dutch rudder, but
Oh my God. We're going back to that, huh? This is.
well, I mean, I'm not trying to be too vulgar here, but in any case, the interesting thing is if any of you believe that a vaccine is going to get rid of this endemic virus and someone can catch it more than once after having it and building a natural immunity to it, you're fooling yourself, folks, because the way that immunity works is you get something and then your body builds up, the antibodies toward it. It builds up the immune system. And that's what immunizations are about. And I've said it, and look, man, my mind will be blown and I will eat my own words if they come up with a vaccine that actually works. But I don't think
Yeah.
that they will. I just don't see it. They've never come up with a vaccine for any sort of coronavirus ever, to include the 7 strains or so that are associated with the common cold.
Mm.
So I don't know. Got anything on that, Tank?
I'll talk about that later when we get into the actual meat of the show.
All right. Well, here Biden is he decided to go the Crowder route and do a change my mind campaign. He says poor kids smell just as good as white kids. Change my mind. And sure, I guess, Joe. I mean, I don't know what kids generally smell like.
I assume goldfish crackers, right?
I will say I did have I used to chaperone field trips for my daughter when she was younger quite often. And anymore, you get so many parents that do it that you get like 1 or 2 kids. I remember back when I was a kid and my dad would chaperone,
Yeah.
and there would be like 10 kids with us for the chaperone. Well, I had one girl and we went to the Smithsonian or something, and she just smelled like sour milk. And I was like, this poor freaking kid, her parents, don't they wash her clothes or bathe her? Like, what is wrong? I felt bad for her. And I was like, this poor kid's gonna grow up being the smelly kid.
Yeah.
No one wants to be the smelly kid. In any case, so there it was. That time you said you weren't for the Great New Deal and claimed Trump was lying. but the people found out on your own website and showed you were a liar. That was awesome. Old Chris Farley.
Mm.
And then we have this Biden campaign sign. Biden for Resident 2020.
Wow.
Did you get that up?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. I know the stream's behind, so it's hard to tell. And then finally, well, not finally, we have a few more of these because these are all Biden memes, or Harris memes. But next we have breaking news: Trump caught holding hands with KKK leader. Just kidding, that was Joe Biden, and that's Robert Byrd, the what was he? What do they call it? Is that Grand Cyclops, I believe?
Yeah, they got weird
Of the
names in the
KKK?
Klan. I mean, I got to be real. A lot of those names are pretty fucking cool. Like exalted, it's like exalted Cyclops and
Yeah, Exalted Cyclops.
and like
that's
grand. Like that's. I mean, that's pretty dope. Like that's like a metal name, like for a band or something.
You know, I didn't live here at the time, but Robert Byrd was actually from my district, the senator. But
Right.
he, I was still living in Maryland then, but he, of course, passed away. Biden spoke with him,
Mm-hmm.
or spoke at his funeral. Old Slick Willie said, you know, a lot of people said that oh, Robert Byrd, he. He was a KKK member. They don't understand. You had to be part of the KKK back then. He was a good old boy. This is part of the good old boy network. All right, Billy Bob. I'm actually going to cover that. Should be tomorrow. I couldn't finish it up today on All Minus One. The KKK leadership of the Democratic Party, which there have been quite a few, and zero, other than David Duke when he switched affiliations later on to the Republicans. This was in the 90s after he ran for the Democratic presidential ticket. But there are zero Republicans who have ever been in the KKK, other than, again, like I said, David Duke, who was a Democrat his entire life up until the 90s. That old Southern strategy, that old switch of the parties.
Right.
All right, here we got Kamala. He's like, do you remember when that time you sided with Jesse Smollett and it turned out the hate crime is fake? And then everybody found out that your family owned slaves? That was awesome.
Yeah, all these people talking about, this thing dropped to the New York Post or whatever. Oh, that's fake news. It's all fake. Like, bro, Jussie Smollett was fake, and you guys are still pushing that shit.
Guess who else family owned slaves, by the way?
Oomst.
Joe Biden's, on his dad's side.
That makes
no
sense.
joke.
I believe that.
His I believe it was his great grandfather.
Yeah.
Owned 12 slaves and then distributed them amongst his children when he died. Didn't free them. But maybe he had debt. I don't know. Because the laws were funky back in the day.
Yeah.
But he absolutely did. I actually saw a segment on Blaze the other day. Glenn Beck had covered this. And it won't be talked about in the news at all.
Of course not.
Not that I really care either, because I don't think Joe Biden is culpable to.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you can recognize that if it had been, Trump's ancestors that owned slaves or something like that.
I just want everyone to be held to the same freaking standard and quit shifting the goalposts. That's all I want.
Yeah, well, I want a Porsche 911, but it's not going to happen.
Me too, bud. Me too. But actually, little known secret, there was an early 2000s model, perfectly fine, that had a faulty ball bearing system, and you can get one. They're usually very low mileage, and you can replace the ball bearing system with a ceramic ball bearing, and it's perfectly fine. That had heat issues, you can get them usually for around 20 grand, and usually less than 50,000 miles on them.
Not bad.
So there you go.
I don't know if I'm going to spend 20 grand on
a I'm just saying, all the modern accoutrements, other than maybe Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And it's a Porsche. And you could say 20 grand on a car, but how much was your truck?
Oh, mine was like, I paid $15,000 for my car. But it's a certified pre-owned.
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, we're talking about $120,000 for a Porsche or whatever they are now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, $20,000 is good. I'm just not going to spend it.
I would when this when this podcasting
Yeah.
streaming thing finally kicks in and I'm PewDiePie and make millions and
Oh
millions of
yeah.
dollars a year.
When my OnlyFans takes off, I'm gonna buy a bunch of stupid shit.
That was a meme. I'm gonna save that. We might have to do some memes on Sunday.
Yeah.
Folks, I will talk about this throughout the show, but we will have a guest this coming Sunday, Kizza GT again. He is returning. So because of the time difference, we'll be doing a Sunday afternoon stream. But anyways, you got Kamala up here. So
Yeah.
apparently she's a super spreader. Did it?
It took me longer than I wanted for me to get this joke, I'll be honest. I was like, what?
I shall say no more. There's so many bad jokes about her obvious past,
Uh-huh.
well-known past that no one wants to talk about. Um, and then let's go to this breaking news story that if Biden said that would if he would get in the White House, he would install a Chair Force One.
Oh my god. I actually knew a lady that had one of these in her house, and it's pretty awesome. I wrote it a lot.
I mean, I probably would too, but that just makes you weak. So listen, folks, if you're old, you need to be exercising. That's all
for
I'm saying.
sure, for sure.
Keep your bone mass up, keep your muscle mass up. Go out like a champ. Don't use a walker. And if you have to use a walker, crawl on your hands and feet. That'll make you strong. All right. So, aside from the news that came out today that Facebook and Twitter are banning from the New York Post, the Hunter Biden affiliations did, in fact, communicate with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was aware of Hunter's activities. I had found this meme and for popular mechanics, I guess. It says things my father got for me, and I'm not going to read all these little things, but there's China, Ukraine, and of course that's some crazy coke eyes there. That's all I know.
You
So
know,
apparently, I didn't get to read the New York Post article, but I did watch a Tim Pool segment on it,
yeah.
and apparently, I saw another segment on it by someone else as well, I think. But yeah, he had a crack pipe in his mouth in one of the pictures.
Oh yeah. I gotta be real. I kind of like this dude. He looks like he'd be fun to hang out with, and I'm kind of wondering why the DNC didn't run him. Like he would be basically be Trump proof. Like he'd just be like off his rocker on blow, just slinging slurs and shit around. It'd be a good time.
Well, I mean, he was banging his brother's widow and some other stuff.
Hell
So,
yeah.
yeah. I think the bigger question though is it speaks to Biden's corruption, which I mean, you got to be a fool if you don't look. I mean, people could say whatever about Trump thinking that he's a racist. That's all media propaganda. I think Biden actually is just based on all of his misspeaks and all the things he said over the years. And he's definitely a plagiarizer and a liar. Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that, man. He's been doing that. That used to be covered in mainstream media. I always point people, go over to Jimmy Dore's channel back in like January, February, before the coof was the big thing. Jimmy Dore did a whole segment about this. And Jimmy's, far left progressive. I don't agree with him much on politics. But one thing I do like about him is he's honest about how the Democratic Party actually operates.
Yeah.
He doesn't play these stupid games where he has his head up his butt and like, oh, yeah, they're not corrupt. I mean, he talks about Obama's corruption, which was massive. So
All right.
let's go to the last one here of the Bidens. It says when Joe Biden first got elected to Senate, this is what Betty White and Caitlyn Jenner looked like.
Wow.
Yo, Bruce there's freaking buff, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty swole.
Yeah, I no neck either.
None. No neck to be
Need to try
seen.
and choke him out or knock him out.
Yeah. Oh my god. Looks like the Incredible Hulk.
Literally, right before we came up to set all this up, I was watching something on YouTube, and in the middle of it, it cut to a commercial. It was an advertisement for some show where they were interviewing Caitlyn Jenner,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh my god, how ironic!" Because I haven't seen anything about old Brucey boy or Caitlyn or whatever in the world he wants to be called, um, in a long time, other than this meme.
Right.
And it was funny because they were interviewing him, and his voice is like as deep as mine, if not deeper.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, okay,
Hey, hey.
you folks, you can go do what you want though. You wanna live like a woman, go live like a woman. I don't really care. Just don't make me, uh, you know, have to accept every single thing you do. That's all I'm saying. Just
Mm.
don't make laws making me have to live like a woman either. So this is the helmet North Pole model, and this has actually been out for a while, but I brought this up because there are all the polls out right now, and they're all I just they got to be bunk. There is no way.
Right.
There is no enthusiasm for Biden. And there's no way with the riots, there's no way with COVID lockdowns, and there's no way with the money. I did a video on that too, a little bit, like a little snippet of it, where Trump has actually, I think, increased average household wages by several $1,000s per year, where it was pretty much stagnant under Bush and Obama.
Right.
We're talking 16 years there, folks. Stagnant. And he increased it by like I think $3,500 or something like that. Not that he did it directly, but by deregulating. So according to this, they've only been wrong twice out of 26 presidential elections. 24 of them they picked correctly. That Trump will win with 362 electoral votes.
Wow.
That's insane. That's a huge landslide.
Yeah. If he blows it out that hard, that's gonna be something. That's there will be lamenting in the streets.
Oh, oh, there will be lefties on their knees. Good
Hmm.
no.
Hmm. All right. Well.
Well, it's going to be better than if Biden was in. I don't know if anyone saw the Project Veritas release of the crazy nutbag that was talking about guillotining people and they'll
Ooh.
force Biden to do whatever they want and whatever else. But
Ooh.
that just came out.
Oh yeah. I did see a little bit of that.
Yeah. So here, this is again just a little article. It says President Trump's Florida rally, 16% of attendees were Democrats, 24% didn't vote in 2016. I saw some other statistics on Trump. 14% of voters haven't voted in something like 4 elections. I've voted in elections, don't get me wrong, but as far as the president himself, I've not voted for a president in 3 elections myself. I will be voting for Trump. So huge numbers, huge deals. Not to mention, I believe black approval and voters is somewhere around 30%, which will completely decimate
Hmm.
the Democratic Party. I think the numbers were something like if Trump gets 15%, something like that,
Yeah.
that the Democrats are gone. And then you have the Latinos. There was a big caravan down in Florida not too long ago, just this past weekend, I think it was. Latinos for Trump. And there was also one for Biden. It was like 5 cars. Um, so folks, don't pay attention to the fake news. Here's another one: enthusiasm gap. Candidates who trailed in voting enthusiasm. Well, we have John Kerry, who I don't like that guy. 16 points, lost to Bush. McCain, don't really like that guy either. 33 points, lost to Obama. 33 points, man, that's huge. Um, Romney, 25 points, lost to Obama. I don't like Romney either. I don't like Clinton.
Really.
13 points, lost to Trump. And Biden, 29 points.
Hmm.
Um, Funny how I don't like any of those people. I think that they're all pretty scummy, but I don't know. You got anything on that tank on the
I,
voter enthusiasm?
it's one of these things. When it comes to election, I just keep kind of going back and forth because obviously I want Trump to win, but I just hope. I guess I'm getting anxious about it. Like I'm worried that he's not going to. And I see a lot of things that that give me hope that he's going to win, and then I see a lot of things that kind of discourage me, and I don't know how to make heads or tails of a lot of this stuff. So that's really all I got about it.
Well, for the midterm elections, he had something like 90% voter turnout,
Yeah,
and he was basically running unopposed. I mean, there were some people, but that's insane. That doesn't happen.
yeah,
So you, or not the midterm, sorry, I meant the primary elections. So you have to realize that also back in the midterms, the blue wave didn't really hit. There was a blue trickle, and the Senate flopped, switched seats to the Republicans, and then the or gained seats within the Republicans, I should say. And then you also didn't have people though like who were backing who were like candidates that were big Trump backers then. It seems like forever ago because it's American politics. It was 2 years ago, but that is a big deal because many of the Republicans have come around now. They're still never Trumpers. They're going for Biden, and people just see what it is. It's just the establishment. Most people see what it is. Some people are crazy and think that Trump's just a shill, but I mean, I've entertained that possibility many a times, and I just
yeah.
it's hard for me to get around that that's the possibility. Um, it seems like all signs point otherwise. So this I just thought was a pretty sweet little meme of Trump rallying the Kekistanis, his Pepe army.
This has big 2016 energy.
Oh yeah, yeah, the Great Meme War 2016.
Mm. Yeah, that'll be funny. If he wins, it's gonna be a lot of this stuff. I'm here for it. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it. Is this Tupac? Is that what we're seeing here?
That's Tupac, buddy, with old Donald Trump back in the day. And unlike Kamala Harris, who listened to Tupac before he ever released anything
Mm-hmm.
and smoked the devil's lettuce in college, Donald Trump actually knew Tupac. But he's a racist, so
Whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. Candid photo though of Trump and Tupac. Uh-oh. Is this Miss
So
Barrett?
you got Miss Barrett up?
I got Miss
What do you got?
Barrett. I got Miss Barrett here. She appears
All
to
right,
be
well, that was
holding.
supposed to be last, but that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
So, no big deal. So, Miss Barrett was asked what she had on her notes, and apparently said Epstein didn't kill himself, and that was it. I mean,
Yeah, all
no,
of
her notes
these
were blank. The woman is quite intelligent, has a great recall, apparently.
edits I've seen of this have been pretty gold.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you got next? Since you got my order out of order.
I got Mike Pence doing a little demonstration of where Kamala Harris comes from.
That's right, Mike Pence. If I can make a live action Johnny Quest movie,
I mean,
Mike Pence would be my man.
He also looks like that guy from C-Lab, if you're familiar with that show.
Oh yeah. I never really got into C-Lab, but yes, I do know the show. I was more of a space ghost, coast to coast.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
I also like the oh crap, I haven't even seen it forever. I like Birdman,
Mm-hmm.
Attorney at Law as well. Back in the day when they were first doing Adult Swim, and then Aqua Teen, Hunger Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aqua Teen is the best. But yes, Mike Pence showing what part of Africa Kamala Harris comes from. I had a few Mike Pence
Yeah.
race abandoned memes, but all right. So what do we got next? We got the
Well, it's not wanting to
we got the
load.
team.
See what we got.
Let it load.
Yeah.
Load now.
Load now. There we go. We got old Beavis and Butthead here with Trump and Mike Pence.
So yes, I'm voting for Trump and Mike Pence, but this is just awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
I mean, who doesn't? Like, if you're at least in your 30s, who doesn't like Beavis and Butthead?
Man, I went to a really ridiculous dubstep DJ concert one time, and some dude had mixed the Beavis and Butthead theme in, and it was just, I was like, what the fuck, dude? Come on. Great.
All right. I guess last but not least is the biggest story of the vice presidential debates. And what you didn't see was the lightning ninja speed of Mr. Miyagi and Danielson trying to get the fly out of Mike Pence's head.
Pretty stoked for the next season of Cobra Kai.
I don't understand. Like, I need a haircut, but I got a lot of hair.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Mike Pence, with the little bit of hair that he has, did not feel that. I mean, that's a lot of hairspray, I guess.
Maybe he's just like really focused on his demolishing Kamala Harris that
Yeah,
he couldn't tell.
yeah. So Amy, in the Amy Coney Barrett hearing, freaking Amy Klobuchar. Well, first off, she said, "I thought I would be in that seat one day."
Yeah.
God forbid Amy Klobuchar
Oh my
ever
God.
gets nominated
Yeah.
to the Supreme Court. I will slap a hoe. I will get all Indian up in here. All right. I will get my native roots and go slap a hoe tribe. All right.
Mm.
In any case, aside from that, like she's repeated the stupid Kamala Harris talking point that Abraham Lincoln, he on the stage didn't, select a Supreme Court nominee because he knew election was coming. Except for historically, what actually happened is that the Senate in the 1860s at the time were adjourned. And as soon as they came back to re-adjourn, they were immediately given a nominee and did the proceedings. And this idea that Abraham Lincoln had anything to do with it is ridiculous. Now, I'm sure Amy Klobuchar and Kamala Harris don't understand that in the 1860s, there weren't airplanes that you could fly in across the United States in about 4 or 5 hours if you live on the other side of the nation. But folks, believe it or not, airplanes are an invention of the last 100 years. I know it's hard to believe. And the Congress and the Senate actually used to go home and stay there for periods of time. I know, it's amazing.
Wow.
It's just amazing. So, anyways, with that, play that Memecast news and we'll get on to the show, folks.
And we're back.
That was kind of a long one.
Yeah.
That was 25 memes, dude.
Wow. 25 memes.
One more than last week.
25.
I don't know. Let us talk about the news. So, what are we going to talk about today, folks? And as I said before, at the very beginning, we're going to talk about health, fitness, and the healthcare system because everything's politics today. Everything. So I'm going to let you start off on that, Tank, since I've been jabbering my mouth.
Okay. Well, so as we was talking about before the show, there, you see a lot of guys on the left. They're really concerned. Like one of the main memes you see is healthcare, please. And I think me and you disagree a little bit when it comes to healthcare. Like I'm not necessarily opposed to nationalize or whatever health. It doesn't bother me that much. That being said, one of the issues that when I see these memes like healthcare, please, is that my first question I have is, why do you need it? Like, why do you even need healthcare? Why do you need healthcare? Why do I need healthcare? I haven't been to the doctor in fucking 4 years. Why do I need healthcare?
It's a human right.
Yeah.
Human
well,
right.
Okay. And I think a lot of people get this idea in their head where they're like, the person that needs healthcare, right? The person that needs it. Why do we need socialized healthcare? Why do we need nationalized healthcare or whatever? Well, they get this idea in their head of like, you remember like A Christmas Carol? No, it wasn't A Christmas Carol. The one with Tiny Tim. What was it? That was a
That's a
Christmas.
Christmas
Yeah,
Carol.
Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So they picture this kid, right? He's on a crutch.
Charles Dickens.
Yeah,
Yes, a Christmas
he's on a
Carol.
crutch. He's got like 9 different kinds of cancers. He was born in this situation he can't help, and he's suffering. Okay, I get that. I definitely anybody who were to see like that, I would definitely feel bad for them. And I'd want them to have whatever they need to feel better. The problem is healthcare in America doesn't look like that, right? Most of healthcare in America looks like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, various other diseases that we have that are either reversible by diet or in some cases completely avoidable, by a lifestyle change. And to me, like whatever you want to do with healthcare after that, if you're going to have completely private healthcare, if you're going to have like a mixture or whatever, you need to figure that out first, right? We're a very unhealthy society, and not because we lack healthcare. We get ourselves in unhealthy situations. So it really kind of just not boggles my mind, but makes me. I feel like there's a lot of solutions to this problem we could be acting on now instead of waiting on a Bernie Sanders to come along and give us free healthcare.
Well, there's a lot of people that I like. I like to follow guys like Dr. Paul Saladino, Rob Wolf, Sean Baker. Let me think who else. Peter Attia. Um, can't think of his first name. I think it's Stephen Volker who wrote the Art and Science of Low Carb Eating. Um, there's a lot of these people that I've looked at over the years that talk about health and diet and the healthcare system. And I think my problem is, and we've kind of mentioned this before, is that people are sheep. They want a healthcare system that they're told how to follow. I've been in relatively good health and fitness most of my life. Now I've had some issues. As I've gotten older here, I've had some issues with my gut and stuff. Um, but generally speaking, I've been relatively healthy. And I would get sick quite often sometimes, but I also worked a really crazy schedule, late hours, also in a jail where viruses go through, they run through everybody. Um, so I haven't really been sick though badly in quite a long time. And um, now part of that might be not interacting with that many people anymore.
Yeah.
But regardless, of all of that, the biggest problem is people not, I think, taking charge of their own health and expecting this idea that as you get older, you just must degenerate. And I can tell you, having some knowledge, some education, some background in the healthcare field, just a little bit, right? That generally they teach you that males will drop their levels of testosterone as they age after 40 by 10% every decade. Except for there are studies done around the world, and you might call them more primitive cultures, more traditional cultures, whatever you want to call them. But there are studies done that elsewhere in the world, that phenomenon does not
Right.
exist. You'll find a 60 and a 70-year-old man has the same testosterone levels as a 20 and 30-year-old man. And even worse in the West, especially in the United States, you have these young men who in their 30s have horrible testosterone
Oh yeah.
problems. And a lot of that is because of environmental poisoning from things like xenoestrogens and poor diet, not eating enough meat, um, you know, having your soy lattes and also your IPAs, folks. Hops promote estrogen production.
S-
So,
So I want to be very clear and very honest up front. I had no desire or inclination to talk about Ted Kaczynski when we started this podcast, but I feel like it's going to happen. I'm letting it happen organically. I'm not going to insert it necessarily, but
well, that's fine, Tank. You can talk about Ted anytime you like.
but
What, Well, let me say this real
Go
quick.
ahead.
I do
Yeah.
want to say this. Like, no joke, when Owen Benjamin back in the day before he went like way out in left field. I mean, I don't think he's that bad, but I hardly ever watch his stuff anymore. But before he got banned from YouTube and all that stuff, way back in the day, he was really getting hard up on soy boys.
Yeah.
And I tweeted something about soy, or sorry, not soy, about how IPAs were estrogenic.
Hmm.
And because he was drinking like on stream and stuff and drinking IPAs. And I'd mentioned it in his Twitter. And like a week later, he was talking about how IPAs create soy boys
Hmm.
too, but I never got credit for it. So,
Got
Owen
shafted.
Benjamin, if I ever see you, I'm gonna beat you. No,
um, no, yeah, I mean you're right. There's that, and the weird thing about that, just to kind of go on this testosterone kick when we're talking about it. So let's say, so I've met some guys that's been tested and they tested pretty low in testosterone, not like bottomed out, but relatively low on the on the spectrum, and there's a lot of argument that our average testosterone levels today are lower than they used to be like 40 years ago. But just for today, even on today's average, they test pretty low in their testosterone. Um, and they have all these symptoms of low testosterone, yada yada yada. Well, because they test inside this window, a lot of doctors won't prescribe them testosterone. They're like, well, you have, I forget what the window is. It's something like between 300 and 800, whatever the unit is, which is a
could be
crazy.
about 200, 250.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but like
to
but like
800.
that's a huge difference. Like if you're walking around with 750 or you're walking around with 250 is night and day. Um so these guys, they'll have low testosterone but be inside the window, and the doctors don't want to give it to them. They're like, I don't want to prescribe you testosterone because you technically have normal testosterone. Um but they have these things like depression or anxiety or whatever, and so the doctors will instead send them to a psychologist or a psychiatrist to put them on like SSRIs or some kind of like brain pill instead of just giving them like a $10 testosterone prescription. It's really strange, the way they look at that. I don't know. It makes me feel bad for a lot of this.
Well, I mean, TRT, in my opinion, I mean, you're taking steroids, dude.
Oh, for sure.
So your endogenous, that is the within your own body, production's going to shut down.
Yeah.
What is, I think, more important is for health. One of the best things you can do is sweat
Yeah.
because that gets all of these xenoestrogens. That's the thing, and things in plastic and whatever else out of your system. You can also take measures. Like, I don't use a lot of plasticware.
Mhm.
So if I'm storing things, I primarily use glassware. They're little things. Look, we're going to get environmental toxins. It's the bottom line. We live in an industrialized society. It's going to happen.
Mm,
You know, you're going to get it through the air from emissions.
right.
You're going to get it because plastics are in everything. Look, if your refrigerator has a water dispenser in it, which most modern refrigerators do, you're going to get xenoestrogens through that because it's
Yeah.
running through a plastic tube. And a lot of people talk about BPAs, but there are like dozens and dozens and dozens of other ones.
Mhm.
And it's something that's not talked about often. So sweating's important. So that means you need to do some sort of cardio. It also means you should probably take hot baths, saunas, or showers on
Right.
the occasion,
Yeah.
right? I do regularly, but um and I think there's some hormetic effects of things too. Hormesis, if anyone's unaware, is basically your body adapting to essentially poor stimulus, or say negative stimulus, like poisoning yourself over time to get a positive effect. And one of those things is being exposed to the environment, like cold, for instance.
Mhm.
Like, how often do you see people? I mean, I love air conditioning because I get hot easily,
Yeah.
but how often do you see people like constantly like monitoring their environment, constantly shifting from hot and cold, and whatever else, messing with the thermostat just to be at
Yeah.
a perfect temperature.
Yeah.
To me, that kind of stuff's like, yeah, it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I find myself doing, I'll get to be a little bit of a pansy about going outside to have to do things or like exerting, like even like with working out. A lot of times, like, "Oh, I don't want to work out or I don't want to go outside and do this." But literally every time I make myself just go outside and stand in the sun to do something, I never regret it. I'm always like, man, I feel so much better just being out here. Like I did some yard work a couple weeks ago. Just I was outside for probably a good 4 hours. Which normally I don't spend that much time outside doing yard work. And I was like, man, actually, like I feel really good. Um, this is good for my body. Like you can really tell that uh, it's very therapeutic. Like I felt calmer when I got done, even though I was so anxious about going outside to do it. Once I done, I was like, man, this is great. And it's the same with like working out. Like I'm like, fuck, I don't want to work out. I'd rather sit here and watch TV or something. And then if I can make myself do it, which I don't always do, admittedly, um, I'm always glad I did it. There's never been a single time that I've worked out after not wanting to and regretted doing it. And we don't do it enough. Like our society just doesn't lean to that direction to where part of it is, we have schedules, we get busy. It's, for a lot of us. Yeah,
You
it's,
get
yeah,
distracted
we get
by the
distracted.
technocracy.
Oh, here we go. Would you say that industrial society and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race?
No, I would not say that, but I think that there are consequences to becoming a modern cyborg and
Yeah,
having this
yeah,
thing floating around, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. That thing's the
trust me, man,
devil.
I use my phone a lot. When
Hmm.
I love having a smartphone because I
Hmm.
like to read and look stuff up. But I like being informed. I like knowledge. I end up doing a lot of research on my phone because it's convenient. I don't need to break out a giant computer. I can just
Hmm.
thumb type a little few things, and um, it goes with me. Now, this thing right here, though, I've also learned to not be addicted to,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
the problem. And some people are addicted to this, man. I'm sitting in front of a computer. I got two monitors going on right now.
yeah,
Uh, they just do this all day.
yeah. It's bad. I deliberately bought a really shitty smartphone specifically to make me want to put it down more often. I try to do this thing where when I get home from work, I listen to podcasts in the car and stuff. But when I get home, I try to take my smartphone and put it away. I try not to touch it. It kind of sucks sometimes because my mom texts me and then I don't like answer for 3 days. But yeah, I really try to distance myself as much as I can from uh, technology as much as possible. And it's hard though. I mean, as much as I'm critical of technology and industrial society, all this stuff is cool. Like laptops cool, being able to read books and stuff. Like all that's awesome. Like I can look up anything on the internet that I want to. Some things I shouldn't look up, but yeah, it's very addictive. We're in a very precarious predicament with our health in terms of how we're spending our time in front of screens so often.
Yes, and one of the things that you mentioned was being outside, and one of the important things about being outside is the light,
Yeah,
and the sunlight itself is very helpful. In fact, I was in a very bad mood last week. I'm not quite sure why, but part of me believes that it was because of the hurricanes and all. It was storming around in this
yeah,
area, and it was just miserable outside. It was dark and dreary all day long, and I didn't like that. And so all of a sudden, I think Sunday, maybe it was Monday, I don't know.
mm,
The sun came out and I was in such a better mood. And if you ever noticed often, well, of course there's an old like adage about it, I guess to some degree as well, but if you ever noticed often when it's raining out, right? It's like one of those lazy sleepy days.
yeah,
Everyone just kind of wants to
yeah,
sleep through the rain. People use it, the sound of rain, to get them to go to sleep. And I think that's kind of a cue for us in a biological way to relax and sleep and all. And if we're trying to do things amongst that, it's not pleasant. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
And being a Marine, like I can tell you, dude, there's a whole thing in the military that, would you rather be tired and hungry or cold and wet?
Yeah.
And everybody will tell you, I'd rather be tired and hungry
Yeah.
because cold and wet sucks.
Yeah.
And I've been cold and wet so many times. It's one of the big reasons why they use it in like Marine Corps infantry, or sorry, not infantry, uh recon training and Navy SEAL training,
Hmm.
because cold and wet really does suck.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
So
miserable.
yeah. And then also with that, you're missing out on your vitamin D. Now, you and I are rather fair skinned,
Hmm.
but if if you're not getting an appropriate amount of vitamin D, something that has something like over 1,000 interactions in your body, processes within your body, then you're probably not going to feel too good or be too healthy.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of this coof stuff is related to low vitamin D levels. It might be
Yeah.
one of the reasons, amongst a few, why the Black community has been
Hmm.
suffering a little bit more, because of their darker skin tone,
Yeah.
and a lot of them living in cities and stuff. They're not getting the appropriate sunlight to produce vitamin D. Because for me to burn might take 20 minutes unless I build up a tan. But for an average Black person, unless they're very light skinned, it might take them an hour.
Yeah.
And the difference is huge as far as your body's ability to develop vitamin D. And ingesting vitamin D is possible, but most people aren't eating in a helpful way.
Yeah.
And again, we can go back to the government stuff. What does the government subsidize? Well, they subsidize soy, they
Ooh.
subsidize corn, they subsidize sugar, um, and mostly though grains, and then the meat industry, which is a whole nother topic, that as far as industrial farming goes, is just a giant nightmare. And they don't crop rotate. They don't allow their soil to rest. So the food you're getting has less nutrients in it than other areas, other places. There's no real difference between, say, organics and regular food, other than maybe pesticides or something like that. And that's the thing too. Those are xenoestrogens. If you're not
Hmm.
washing your food well, you're gonna be eating xenoestrogens, folks. But I guess my bigger point of that is well, that's your government that you're listening to about the food pyramid that's completely upside down. It's completely backwards. And they're the same people that are in these organizations or want to be involved in these organizations, like the World Health Organization, which says that veganism is fine for pregnant nursing mothers, pregnant and
Ooh.
nursing
Yeah.
mothers. And that was a vote, folks. That was a council of a couple of people, of scientists, the majority of which were vegans, and said, "Yep, it's fine."
Hmm. Mm.
And it's not. It's not. It's not good for human brain development. It's not good for growth. It's not good for anything. I'm not saying you can't be a vegan, but
I am. I'm
it
saying that.
isn't. It isn't the game changers, folks.
Yeah.
That movie's just a bunch of propaganda. So
Oh, let's take a little bit of a break. I gotta take care of something real quick, and then we'll be back here in a minute or so.
I'm the host. What are you doing?
Just
You're
let
hosting
me
for
know.
me?
Yeah, I guess
No,
so.
it's fine. You want to take a break? Let's take a break.
Yeah. All right. Be right back,
Be right
fellas.
back, folks. Here we are, folks, just you and me, waiting for Tank once again. Tank, where are you, Tank? He might have fell in, folks. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Sometimes you don't realize that the seat isn't down. Maybe it was something else that happened. Maybe it wasn't the alcohol that got to him. It's hard to say. There he is. Here he comes. He's back.
Woo! Sorry, I thought someone was breaking into my house for a second there.
I thought you had to use the bathroom.
Well, I did, and then my dog started freaking out. I was like, oh, God, what's going on? I thought someone's trying to kill me. But he just had to piss, so it's a double bathroom.
Bust out the AK.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to use the bathroom myself. I've had to for a while, but I can hold it because I'm a man.
So yeah, we're talking about vegan being pregnant's terrible. That's a bad idea. But well, here's the other thing. We're talking about environmental. You know, a lot of environmentalists will say, don't eat meat, eat soy or whatever the fuck they say, which is stupid. And their argument is, well, we have all this farmland, we grow soy and wheat to feed the cows, when we could just eat the soy and wheat. Well, okay, well that's true, but cows fucking eat grass.
Yes.
I mean, maybe some industrial farms. I mean, I don't know. All my beef I eat's grass fed, but maybe some industrial farms do feed their meat or their beef, whatever. But I mean, grass grows everywhere. I really encourage anyone who's interested in like environmental issues to read "Can Life Prevail" by Pence, who's a Finnish ecologist. He sheds a lot of light on like what I would consider like alternative ecology, and he goes into a lot of this stuff like don't eat all this crap it's made in plastic. Grass is everywhere, so there's no reason not to have livestock wherever you can put it. A lot of stuff like that.
Well, look, man. First off, I'm not saying that I have the exact numbers because I'm recalling this off the top of my head, and we didn't decide to talk about this till just right before we went live. But something like 80% of all livestock animals, that is cattle, in the U.S., are being raised and pastured on farms.
Yeah.
They are later brought to the factory farms and grass finished for about 2 to 3 months before they're slaughtered. Now, the problem with the factory farming system, though, is the issues with runoff and exposure and those kind of things. Another issue, though, as far as feeding cows, well, cows, they do eat grass, and then they fertilize it, and the land then gets filled with nutrients and nitrogen and whatever else, and therefore you can then plant crops on it. But what the vegans never discuss, never, ever, ever, ever discuss, is when you go through and you essentially collect your crops, and you have that combine coming through and collecting everything up, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of little tiny critters that are killed during that process.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing they don't bring up is that you have to kill animals to keep them from your crops.
Yeah.
Because they will come and ravage your crops. We know that this happens very, very extensively in Texas with hogs. So much so that they have to hire people to kill them. And they kill them by the dozens. I mean, like daily.
And that's why I don't buy it. That's why I think a lot of this veganism stuff is very dishonest. They'll
it's
say
ideological. It's not reality.
Yeah, well, sure, but they're like, oh, meat's bad for the environment, which I think is bullshit on its face. But let's just say that that's true. Okay, you're saying that meat's bad for the environment. Okay, well, are you telling me that shipping ripe avocados to put on the shelves in Michigan is good for the environment? That's vegan, And if you look at what vegans eat, it's not the vegans that I've met don't just limit their diet to the plants that are in season in their area. It's, star fruits and all this stuff that's imported from
Right.
who the fuck knows where.
Which, by the way, folks, if you're not eating, in my opinion, don't get me wrong, if you're not eating somewhat geared toward your ancestral diet, that is what your genetics are made of, you're going to have health issues. So, and we've seen this very specifically with native populations across the
Yeah,
globe.
yeah.
But we can see very specifically the Inuit people
Hmm.
have become quite large, quite obese, and have health problems when they've switched to a Western diet versus their original diet, which is like 80% whale blubber and has almost no vegetation in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, the Pima, the Pima Indians are an interesting case because they were starving to death. This was like during the 20s, I believe. They were starving to death, getting government rations of flour, white flour, and sugar, and yet they were like 400 or 500 pounds.
Hmm.
But their children were starving to death. But that food doesn't have any nutrition in it either. It's just empty calories. It's funny because I I saw on Reddit there's a Reddit that's like communism versus capitalism, and it's like open discussion. It's not too terrible, but I made a comment in there about the post specific post was about, we always hear about starvation and communism, but what about all the people that starve under capitalism? And I was like, well, we can talk about the Great Famine of China or the Holodomor or whatever other things that have happened through communism and see directly how people were purposefully starved out and
Hmm.
actually ate, their children. They turned to cannibalism. Um, but we don't really have those. I'm not saying that people aren't sometimes malnourished, don't have issues under capitalism. Which, by the way, folks, we don't have a completely free capitalistic market in the United States, anyways. We have what they call a mixed economy. It is centralized. It is slightly fascistic, if you want to put it in those terms. I usually do, but not fascistic like, oh, we're gonna kill Jews kind of thing. Fascistic as in an economic system. Um, but it is more free than it is that. Even though we do have a centralized bank, which is a big issue. But aside from those points, like when do you see people really starving? Like most people that are hungry in the United States are hungry because they have crap parents who aren't feeding them, who are making poor decisions because they use drugs or they spend their money on stupid things like entertainment. And I'm not saying it's stupid to spend your money on entertainment, folks. I'm saying that you need to prioritize your health and your food first, and your children's health and their food first. Um, we have people who aren't willing to work, or you have someone who wants to go and live in a, the bougie, poshy part of town and have the sweet apartment. Um, and so they'll spend all of their money on an apartment, and not have any money to have food. That's about priorities and personal individual choices. That has nothing to do with, people starving in America. It's so much so that they call it in America, it's called food inadequacy.
Yeah.
Food inadequacy, nutritional inadequacy. There are no numbers about people starving in the Western civilization, in the Western world. In fact, the World Health Organization and other globalist organizations don't even monitor it in the Western. I'm talking about Europe and the Americas, Australia, all that. Don't even monitor it because it's so doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't know
And
I don't know how they're defining malnourishment. I would definitely argue there's a lot of malnourished people in the United States.
yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of them are
none of them are not getting their daily minimum caloric requirement. Matter of fact, they're probably getting way too much.
well, but the difference between caloric requirement
Yeah.
and nutritional requirement are two different
Oh,
things.
for sure. Yeah. I
You
think
have
that's
to
kind of
have your you have to have your micros, not just macros.
yeah.
And mostly a lot of obese people, believe it or not, folks, are actually malnourished. They don't even know it.
Yeah, I could see that for
You
sure.
can be obese and be malnourished. Obesity is just a matter of your fat organ
Hmm.
essentially continuing to grow. It doesn't mean anything about you having proper nutrition. And if you don't have the proper nutrients, your body will break down over time.
And I think,
So
kind of get it back to healthcare. That's our biggest problem, in the United States is pretty much every not to say every, but the major illnesses that we have are non-communicable that are associated somewhat with lifestyle, like
heart disease is the number one
yeah,
killer.
heart disease, like how type 2 diabetes is even a thing is crazy to me. I mean, it makes sense actually because I grew up in a culture that drinks a lot of sugar. But the
Dude,
fact,
sweet tea is the best.
yeah, like sweet. I mean, like sweet teas and sodas and all that stuff. Like I didn't realize until into my mid-20s or so. I'd met a lot of diabetics, but I didn't realize that's what caused it. Like, oh, I thought like people just get type 2 diabetes or whatever at some point in their life because they get older or whatever. But then I started noticing like youngish people getting it, and that's what made me start looking into a lot of this diet stuff. That's one of the reasons why I started keto. Was I was looking into the benefits of just kind of cutting processed carbs out of your diet, which I think pretty much everyone could stand to do. Uh, yeah, and it's really weird that all this talk about healthcare, we don't put that on the table, so to speak. It's never We don't have a culture of preventative maintenance in our healthcare society. It's all live whatever lifestyle you want to live, and then it's your human right to have your insulin or whatever it is you need to take care of something that can be prevented.
Well, we have 100 years of regressive leftists telling the American people that the government will take care of them like their
Mm-hmm.
mommy and daddy. And so American people foolishly believe that they should follow the American healthcare guidelines, the American Heart Association,
Oh God,
Diabetics
yeah.
Association, all those people, which give you garbage information. So when I started studying this stuff in my early 20s, um, I started eating essentially like you could call it paleo, keto, whatever. Um, and I was in really good shape. And I would talk to people about this, and I would tell people that fat isn't the enemy, that fat is actually better for you. In fact, let's do a little let's do a little logic here. Every animal species that has high levels of insulin have low um, low spans of life, short spans of life, high mortality risks. Any species that has low insulin tends to live longer. If your diet is insulinogenic, meaning you're eating a bunch of sugar or carbohydrates or whatever that raise your insulin constantly, that's not healthy. Insulin is a response to get a toxin, more or less, out of your system or to get nutrients into the muscles and organs and wherever it needs to go. So if that's constantly being bumped up, that's not good. Guess what? The one nutrient that doesn't raise insulin is?
Fat.
That's right, fat. Fat does not raise insulin at all. Protein will to some degree, but not like sugar or carbohydrates, if you would. So I would tell people that fat isn't bad for you. Number two, on that issue, the majority of the best nutrients that you need, vitamins and some minerals even, are fat soluble, meaning you need fat to process and digest them and to store them in your body. And they are stored within your fat. Um, if you don't have fat, appropriate amount of fat in your diet, you won't absorb those nutrients well. Although your body can make some fat and can make fat from carbohydrates as well. Um, but the point is that when you want to prioritize that, here's the other thing. Getting a little bit deeper into the science, the cleanest fuel that your body can burn is a ketone. Ketones are not released when your body is releasing high levels of insulin. Ketones are released when you're having high levels of fat in your diet. So that has the least amount of oxidative stress when your body uses that. I believe what is it? Alpha hydroxybutyrate is the main molecule that's released. But this is a very clean fuel source versus the insulinogenic cycle where you're taking in sugar. The other thing is when your body has a high level of insulin, you tend to store it as fat. So generally, we know obesity is not good for you. It's not healthy. Um, there was a third point I was trying to think of about fat. Um, but well, another thing, a couple other things is, you get on the carb cycle, you have crashes, up and down, energy crashes. You eat a lot of fat in your diet, not so much so. Um, and then wi- the other thing with fat is hormones. So we were talking about hormones earlier. So if you reduce the fat in your diet to less than 30% of your calories, your overall calories, you'll have a huge decline in essentially the sex hormones, male or female. Women will actually lose their period if they do not have enough fat in their diet. And then the biggest lie was about saturated fat, which is just silly because, of course, human beings have always ate animals. Of course, human beings have always hunted animals. Of course, human beings did not have rampant heart disease for, hundreds of thousands of years. And then all of a sudden, some, idiot like Ansel Keys comes along, has propaganda to dispense, to spew out, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's saturated fat and cholesterol that's the problem. Eat rabbit food." And just a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of fake, phony, ridiculous science. And what has that done? Well, it's caused our obesity, heart disease, and diabetic rates to go just through the roof for the last 60 years. And it's really insane, especially the last 40, 50 years. But we didn't have a problem before that with this stuff. We didn't have a bunch of obese people. Part of that is because of our luxury, because we do have more food. But a lot of that is because people are eating the wrong things. And I'll tell you another thing that's causing it too. Diet's a primary issue, but exercise. We can't even get young men in the military today. The reason why you see certain people who are like special forces dudes. So, for instance, Grand Thumb, for instance, being a Air Force guy who's on YouTube, he's got a great channel about guns and gear. Love his stuff. Um, Tactics. Sometimes he talks about just training stuff in general. He's a special forces dude. Why can he do all the stuff that he does? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it helps with recruitment, and they give those guys leeway, and they give them leeway because they can't find people who are in appropriate shape to go into the military today. It is a huge issue. It's a gigantic issue. Even when I was going in, there were guys that were going in who were overweight. You wouldn't, in the Marine Corps at least, you wouldn't graduate boot camp. I knew guys there. They picked up with my platoon later on. They'd been at Paris Island for 8 9 months, just waiting to lose appropriate weight to finally go and graduate and get into the real Marine Corps. Um, I don't know how strict it is today, but they keep lowering standards. The Army just released a thing the other day that they're not going to be PT testing anybody until 2022. For 2 years, no PT test for anybody.
That's rough.
And like this is real, guys. Like we have real problems with our health in the US. Young men should be way stronger. Whether you're skinny or whatever. I mean, I was a skinny little dude. I think was like 115 pounds a couple months before I went to the Marine Corps. I'm 5'6", 5'7" ish. I got I ate like two peanut butter sandwiches every night before bed and drank like two glasses of milk, and I got up to about 120. I came out of boot camp though at 135 pounds. So I put on 15 pounds of muscle in boot
Yeah.
camp.
Yeah.
And and now I'm like 155. Um and hopefully because I'm hitting the weights hard and
Yeah.
and the calisthenics or whatever, hopefully I'll get that up a little bit higher. But I don't really care about being big or some big buff dude either. I just want to be in good shape. But the uh the point is that yeah, I mean I was a skinny dude, but I was athletic. I worked out. I used to do freaking kung fu and kickboxing and stuff 3 4 hours a day. So
Yeah.
um, there's a difference. I went into the Marine Corps being able to do 12 pull-ups. That's not a lot, but
Mm.
there's a point where I was in the Marines where I could do 30.
I
So
mean, compared to a lot of people, that is pretty good. Uh, yeah, I think like I think probably 12 is probably the most I. No, I could do more than that. I could do 12 in a row is probably the most I could do right now, I guess. But yeah, like there's a lot of people that can't do a pull up, and it's like to kind of bring it back to healthcare. Like, how are you going to be able to have any kind of healthcare system that's functional if you've got a lot of your population that can't do a pull up, can't do a push up, can't do a sit up? Um, and uh, you know, like I said before, I don't really care either way. However you want to do your healthcare system in a given country, but you have to have some kind of preventative maintenance, and we don't even think about that. And part of that is because we're talking about like Ansel Keys, and that's kind of why I'm so anti-expert. Is because before the 50s or maybe the 40s or whatever, um, people didn't turn to some bureaucratic organization to tell them what to do. You ate what you ate what your granddad ate. Your granddad ate bacon and eggs, so you ate bacon and eggs. And then along, here comes these guys with the food pyramid and all this other stupid shit. And now, they're like, oh, well, I can't eat bacon and eggs because it'll kill me. So they eat granola bars full of sugar, and that's what's killing them. All because you didn't just listen to what your grandfather did, from the get go.
but there were people that understood what health foods were. I mean, we have ancient traditions and ancient cultures. In primitive cultures, Weston Price, for instance, traveled the world looking at primitive cultures, and there were certain foods that these people had figured out were health foods. For instance, the Indians who lived in the Andes Mountains in South America, they would travel down from the mountains all the way to the shoreline, down to the spawning hatcheries
Mm-hmm.
of salmon and collect the salmon eggs
Mm-hmm.
so that they could feed to their pregnant women and newborn children. Now, we now know through science, which we didn't know this until just a few years ago, by the way, folks, that that the uh, that the DHA and the omega 3s in fatty fish like salmon help the brain grow.
Oh yeah.
And so when you're having a
Mm-hmm.
developing child or a pregnant woman, that was a super nutritious food for them. Well, they had figured that out. They knew that. They knew that instinctively somehow.
Well,
Eggs and bacon have always been good food for
yeah.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm saying. Historically, we've always known. We just I forget who Hunter Motts. So there's this podcast called Mixed Mental Arts, and he talks a lot about the science. So basically, our like fairy tale about history is that humans walked around forever being big stupid dum dums until about 500 years ago when we discovered science, and that's when we started learning things, which is absolutely stupid. We've known things intrinsically. However we figured it out, whatever it was, we were able to survive in the harsh wilderness and become very strong and very prosperous without some scientific organization. We didn't do experiments really. We just kind of knew that meat's good for you. If you want to be strong, you gotta eat meat.
We observed.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is that so Jordan Peterson makes the same kind of case actually a lot in his own way. Is that people will be like, oh no, they were dumb. They had this superstitious belief and they
Yeah.
believed that and they knew this and they did it. It's like maybe how often is science also wrong
Oh yeah.
and corrected? And not just wrong and corrected, but manipulated to prove a point. I'm not an anti-science. I'm very pro-science. I'm a very logical, pragmatic guy. However, most people in the sciences who are celebrities, let's say Neil deGrasse Tyson, for instance, they're cult leaders, folks. They're literally like a cult leader. They're selling you a bag of goods that is nonsense. And Neil deGrasse Tyson specifically, he's been caught as a plagiarizer. He's told lies. He's made up information, facts and statistics. You can look all this up. This isn't libel. This is just a fact. There's been news articles about it. It's a reality. Um, I've never been a fan of the guy because I don't like his smugness and whatever else. I'm not a fan of smug atheist types, and I don't care if you're an atheist or not. I mean, I've never liked Richard Dawkins because of that. But I think Richard Dawkins is one of those guys, I provably, that has made stuff up himself and hidden facts and whatever else to just project his ideology. And now he's backtracked a little bit and said, "Well, I understand now why we need religion and this and that." And it's like, yeah, now the SJWs are coming after you because you were the same thing. Dawkins, you were the same thing. You were an SJW. You just didn't realize it. You were an ideologue who needed to destroy everybody else and their beliefs and their values. And now that they're coming after science because of postmodernism, they're going, well, now I get that, religion and tradition are important. It's like, yeah, yeah, they are important because that's where we come from. Whether it's a myth or reality. Now I think it's reality, but like that that is primordial important stuff. And people pass down their heritage for centuries. Now, sometimes there was innovations, of course there was. And sometimes they were wrong. Of course they were. But they fixed it. They fixed it. You know, I think it was, I might be wrong. I don't, maybe it's not Xenon. I can't remember. It's a guy that starts with an X, ancient Greek philosopher. You know, the modern current idea of panspermia, that the Earth was seeded from space from an asteroid or something like that, is a Greek idea from about 300 years before Plato. Might be a little bit longer than that. I can't remember the exact date or the guy's name. I don't think it was Zeno, but it's something like that. That that just goes to show you that even as a human, as a species that supposedly we've evolved so far, because we're not Homo sapiens, right? We're Homo sapiens sapiens. That's what we're considered. We're the wise man now. And I think, no, we're not. We're the stupid man,
Hmm.
the arrogant man. That's what we are. Um, but modern science takes an idea like that from ancient times that came out of nowhere. Like evolution's really old, guys. That idea comes from way back. Um, Darwin didn't invent anything or come up with anything. In fact, he stole from his grandfather Erasmus from his book Zoonomia, a lot of it. So he plagiarized his grandfather. Um, but we have these ideas, and again, I'm not saying that species don't adapt or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, that's provably true. We know that through animal husbandry. We didn't need science to figure that out. To go, oh, if I breed this animal and that animal, I get this kind of animal. Like, that's how we got dogs, folks. That's how we got domesticated dogs. Like, we figured a lot of stuff out in the past, and I'm not discounting science because, again, very logical, pragmatic person, but I'm also an honest person. And I think, again, those what you're talking about, those supposed experts, they're more akin to cult leaders.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I
respect.
I am anti-science. I think it's fake and gay. So well, it's just it's led us to this place to where we went from science being this cool thing that we can use to figure stuff out to being, for some reason, the only tool in our toolbox for understanding the world. History's important too. And when history says, well, your granddad ate bacon and eggs and he lived to be 150 years old or whatever, um, and science says, well, you can't eat bacon and eggs, you'll die at 30. One's got to take precedence, or at least you got to figure out where that conflict lies. And no one ever did that for whatever
Well,
reason.
look at Gary Taubes,
Hmm.
if you know who he is.
Yeah.
I can't remember the title of his books, but his books are like this freaking thick. And he's a science researcher and went through all
Mm.
this material. And I'm not saying he's got all the answers, but he's got a pretty good lead on the answers. And he would talk that I used to watch his lectures all the time back, 15 years ago or more, with epidemiologists. And then their whole hypothesis is still the same. Like after he's done his lecture, who still thinks it's calories in, calories out? Me. Look, guys, calories in, calories out. yeah, that's sort of a thing that sort of works, but you don't know all the metabolic issues that are going on in your
Yeah.
body that causes that calories in, calories out. It's like the thing I'm seeing more and more. I've been seeing it recently actually, which is really good. The idea, the zeitgeist of people going, well, you can't build muscle without gaining fat. And it's like, yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, you don't have to get fat to build muscle, folks. That's called a dirty bulk in bodybuilding circles. Like, you're going to gain muscle if you eat. It's all about where your body and the hormones in your body, those are the signalers that tell things to do things.
Hmm.
they they will apportion the nutrients to where they need to go. And your skeletal muscle will grow, it will get bigger, it will thicken. The the myofibulars, the little filaments in the muscles, they will they will get denser, bigger. They'll fill out. There'll be more of them um, as you work out and as you eat appropriate food and nutrients to feed them. Now, if you eat a bunch of carbohydrates, you're just gonna get fat. I'm sorry. And I mean, maybe your workout and your um, level of activity warrants a bunch of carbohydrates, but right now I'm working out twice a day myself, and I'm eating less than 100, not even that. Some
Yeah.
days I'm eating less than 50.
I see a lot of these like weightlifter guys. There's some of the most critical of low carb diets, and I kind of see where they're coming from because you can use carbohydrates for sure. I remember when I first did keto, I went 6 weeks without eating any sugar, and I ate less than like 20 grams of carbs a day. And then I was like, I want to eat a cupcake and see what happens. And I ate one of those stupid like Walmart big frosting cupcakes. The ones that has like the mile high of ridiculous colored frosting on it, and I thought I could run a marathon. I I have never like if I was I'm eating carbs right now, so like if I drink a soda or something right now, I don't really notice it. But in that moment when I ate that cupcake, I was like, I feel like I just done cocaine or something. Like it was insane how much of like a rush I got from that sugar. So I could definitely see like if you want to use carbohydrates as a tool to like get that boost of energy for whatever you're using it for, that makes sense, sort of. But you don't need them. Like their average person that's not, trying to win the Olympic weightlifting competition. Like you can just not eat carbs. It's fine.
Yeah, well, the thing is so I'll go back to the Inuit. He's brought up or this story of this explorer named Stefansson, and he's brought up from time to time. But again, when I was all getting into this rabbit hole back in the day, and I mean back in the day, like in my mid 20s, early 20s, what I was fascinated by was how this guy went up, stayed with the Inuit. They ate almost nothing but fat, or 80% of their calories from fat. And he was talking about how much endurance they have. And so there's a lot of study on that now. I'm trying to think the guy's name. Is it Dominic? Is it it's not DeMarco, it's something like that. I can't think of his name. But that's all he does is study like low carb stuff. And he's a big buff athletic dude.
he's
And
like
he's a scientist.
he's that guy that's on. He was on Joe Rogan, right? He did like a debate or something.
He's been on Rogan, but yeah, I was
Yeah,
aware of him before that.
yeah.
I'll tell you who Rhonda Patrick, I was not aware of her until Rogan. I really like her. If you know anything, so I was a Bruce Ames fan before that. I didn't know Rhonda Patrick was uh, one of his disciples. He mentored her. And Bruce Ames is a guy who had a career in science that was just astounding, switched his direction of science like 3 times throughout his life. Just incredible researcher, debunks a ton of stuff. And so I really like Rhonda Patrick too, but there's some things that she says sometimes. I'm like, I don't know, Rhonda. You can look at the literature, but the literature isn't always correct. And you got to look at the efficacy of the study, and the efficacy of the study, that's the biggest thing most people miss because often the studies aren't done well. You can't take 5 guys and be like, we had a 6-week study. And we gave them a low carb diet of 150 carbs. And we saw that's what they do.
Yeah.
You can read some of this crap, dude.
Yeah.
I used to spend my evenings at work bored off my butt, having nothing else to do. I did it less in the midnight shift, but I would be like on the evening shift or whatever when all the inmates would be locked in. I'd be in a control center or something. Didn't have anything to do. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go read some scientific research. You read these studies. 6 weeks, we gave a low carb diet, 150 carbs a day. Not a low carb diet, folks. Cannot be in ketogenesis at that point. Maybe at night while you're sleeping during a fast, but otherwise, no. And that's another thing, man. I fast. I've been doing that for years. I intermittent fast. I've been doing it forever. So there's this guy, Ori Hofmeekler, wrote this book, The Warrior Diet. Dragondoor.com used to sell it. They're the people that made kettlebells a thing. So I had this. I wanted to show, forgive me for my commie shirt because I like Rage Against the Machine, but that is Pavel Tsatsouline. And I was a kettlebell instructor, like back when I was like 25 and, or 24 actually. Yeah. And was really into it, almost into the cultish part of it. But um, I started doing that when I was in the military back in 2002. Actually, I had my first kettlebell and talk about stuff. Started doing pistol squats. It was actually first time I tried to do a pistol squat. I could do one, which is pretty cool. But I was like, how the hell can I do this? This looks way harder than it should be. But I mean, I was in good shape. I was in the Marine Corps. But I had guys telling me how, I was crazy and whatever else, some stuff I was talking about, doing high weight, low rep lifting, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm talking about some really buff dudes. I'm not like I've never been like ultra jacked. I mean, I can say I've been jacked, but I'm not like a big dude. So they just think I'm stupid, whatever. And then all that stuff now, mainstream as hell. Had to wait 15 years for it. Well, not quite that long, about 10 years. But um my point is though, is way back then, Dragon Door was putting out a book called The Warrior Diet, and it first got me into intermittent fasting. That's before intermittent fasting was a thing, before all of the other intermittent fasting schemes out there, like Lean Gains or uh, what is it? Eat, Stop, Eat. That book came out, and some other stuff. And here we have Rhonda Patrick eventually bringing to Joe Rogan's attention um, the the time restricted feeding, which I think it's Doctor uh, I think it's Gupta or Panda Gupta or something like that. Can't remember his last name, but Panda or Panda's his name, first name, last name, one of them. And they found that you know people can control their weight despite what they eat and their macronutrients if they just fast 12 hours a day.
Yeah, that's funny to bring that up because I'm a pretty thin dude, obviously, and I've always been a thin dude. Uh, but I've always, most of my life, I've eaten like garbage. It's only been like the last few years that I've really tried to be better about it. But I've always ate like shit. And people would say, "Oh my God, you can eat whatever you want. You never gain any weight." Well, and then later I found out when I started hearing about intermittent fasting, I've always thought that food did not taste good until like 11 a.m. I could never eat breakfast. I've never been able to my whole life. Um, I would wait till 11, 12, 1, sometimes 2 before I'd even like be hungry. And I think that's kind of the reason why I was able to stay so lean in spite of my garbage diet was because that's just how it was. I just didn't eat. Didn't I still don't. Like it's really hard for me. I'm a little bit like when I was doing some weightlifting, some of like the deadlift 5-5 program stuff. I would eat more. I eat like in the morning and stuff. But most of my life, I didn't care about it. Almost to the point like if someone tried to give me food in the morning, I'd be like, this kind of grosses me out. I can't do it.
Dude, people used to say to me all the time, just like the same I was talking about people telling me, "Oh, fat's bad for you." By the way, most of them were fat people.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, fat's bad for you, but you're the one who's obese. But whatever. But they'd say to me, "Well, with a guy with your metabolism, well, yeah, you just have a good metabolism. You just this and that." And then people always would, quite often underestimate my weight, and I think they don't realize that bone density and muscle density has a lot to do with how heavy you are. Um, but but especially that one with like, oh, you just have this metabolism. I'm like, dude, in my 20s, I no joke. I worked out 45 minutes a day, almost every day, body weight drills, kettlebells, and then on top of that, I did mobility, flexibility, and martial arts training, usually shadow boxing and bag work, I probably spent 4 hours a day working out every day, practically. I'm not saying I didn't have days off, but um, you're not going to tell me that that is based on my fast metabolism. And I can tell you for a fact it's not, because there was a period when I was in the Marines where I gained a little extra weight. We had some downtime, wasn't PTing as much, and I was eating more junk food. In fact, I actually stopped drinking soda while I was in the Marine Corps because after I hit about 20, I started putting on weight, which I never had an issue with before. Um, and then when after I got out of the Marine Corps and my now ex-wife was pregnant with my daughter, I was out of shape. And I was like, okay, I'm about to have a baby. And the reason why I was out of shape is because I had just been on 2 deployments. The first deployment was on ship, didn't work out enough then. A lot of guys get into shape on ship. I unfortunately got out of shape. Um, and then they stuck me in the company office because I was short timing. And then I went to Iraq, and then they put me back in a line platoon to be a regular infantryman. But you're in the desert all the time, and it's 130 degrees out, and we weren't in a base. We were constantly moving. So you don't have time to work out unless you're super focused. And so then I got out and I partied and did whatever else, and just did my thing. Didn't think about working out. And when I found out I was having a baby, though, that really motivated me. And I started hitting the kettlebells really hard and all that stuff. And that's really when I got into all this diet stuff. And, you know, it was different then too, because the internet was a lot of forums and other stuff. There's a lot of information coming out. There's a lot of contradictory information. So I was experimenting a lot with myself. And I think this is important because people should do this. You should see. So now like I eat um generally within a 12-hour window. If you go longer, by the way, according to that time restricted feeding, you get some endurance benefits if you go up to um 14 to 16 hours without eating. Um, but people who do that regular fast, which I've been doing like for 15 years, that gives you those people that do that have more lean body mass, and that gives you some buffer. And if you think about the traditional times when people would eat, so say you woke up at 5 a.m., right? So when is breakfast? 7 a.m. When is lunch? Noon, you know, something like that. When is dinner? 5 a.m. And then you don't eat anymore after that. So people were naturally doing that forever. Not to mention there were shortages of food. And we think I would have people tell me, I don't know why I'm overweight. It's not like I eat a lot, as they're shoving junk in their face. A lot of this is a luxury thing. A lot of our health issues, the whole healthcare system is is an issue. People are elderly because they don't move. We didn't get into actual exercise. We were talking about maybe bringing it up, but like, do you do mobility drills? Do you do like just like wrist rotations? Do you do spinal articulations? Can you move your sternum? Um, I remember when I used to teach Russian martial arts, and people would first join the class, and I would be doing like certain joint articulations, moving around or whatever. And they'd be like, "Whoa, that's weird. I've never seen that." And it's like, well, yeah, because in Russia, they have a they have this idea, this notion that this is healthy for you.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, we do a lot of stuff in jujitsu that's like a lot of like weird stretching and articulation. I do have a problem with. I have a posture issue I've kind of had my whole life. That I'm working on right now, trying to fix because I just found out you can fix it. Um, so that's what's messed me up, and some of this body weight, like pistol squats, would be really hard for me outside the strength issue because I can't get the like a lot of people can go ass to grass with their heels on the ground. Like I can't do that. I'm not that flexible. But I'm trying to work
I
up
have
to
a
be
hip
able to do it.
issue where I don't do them anymore with the leg extended forward.
Yeah.
I do them off a bench and just let my leg hang.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah.
good way to do it. Also, you can't get your butt to the floor. Um, you should try holding a weight in front of you if
Yeah.
you haven't tried that,
Yeah.
because
Well,
that.
when I
that
was getting
counterbalance.
when I was getting really into the kettlebell stuff, I was doing the simple and sinister Pavel Tsatsouline thing,
Yeah,
and yeah, I could definitely do a lot better for sure. But like when I was in China, I saw all these people that could just squat. Like pretty much everyone could just go heels on the ground, ass to grass. And that's because they don't have Western style toilets. They're used to shitting like that their whole life. But we've lost it. It's another luxury thing that we don't have that
that's
flex.
part of it.
Yeah,
We have poor posture too, though.
yeah,
So there's this lady, Esther Golkale, who was a yoga lady, and she essentially had back issues and fixed them for herself. But she realized that the modern American posture is really bad. And I don't mean like hunched over shoulders or any of that stuff. I mean, if you look at ancient statues, if you look at people who like we can go to Africa and look at people who work in fields or whatever, they have very straight spines. And if you look at babies, very straight spines. If you look at someone who's a wrestler,
yeah,
who's wrestled all throughout high school or younger, whatever, coming up, always have very straight spines. Well, they have good posture. We have all this stuff where we have our necks bent forward, and we've seen over time in anatomy where the curvature of the spine has been exaggerated even more. Now the spine is supposed to have curve in it, but it's not supposed to be straight up and down. But there's a difference between it being curved like this and being curved like that. The difference is huge, and a lot of that had to do with poor handling of babies, had to do with fashion. A lot of that came about in the 1920s. If you read old accounts of Native Americans, of Europeans watching Native Americans, they would talk about how straight their spines were, and often they would attribute it to them wrapping their babies up, because they would carry them on their back and they would wrap their babies up in this, in their papoose, you know.
yeah.
Um, that isn't necessarily the reality, but it is a factor. And another issue is people, we don't go out and play, um, adults as well as children anymore. We have people who wear shoes all the freaking time. I had to rid myself of this habit years ago. Like, you don't have any strength in your feet, folks, if you're wearing shoes all the time. Another one is we make our children walk too soon. I dated a girl years ago. She had a little girl, baby essentially, that was just learning to walk, and her mom was trying to put shoes on her feet. And these people were Native Americans, by the way, mind you, which is interesting because I lost any and all tradition, just modernized, right? Um, but had shoes on, trying to put shoes on her feet of this like 14-month-old or however old she was, little girl, and I'm like, why would you do that? Well, so she can walk to blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure your granddaughter wasn't born with shoes when she came out the womb. You do realize, like, whatever you think of our spiritual nature or our soul nature, we are animals, right? Like, we are of the structure of animals. We have everything we need to survive, in my opinion, as animals. I don't believe in this idea that we've become this frail, weak thing. I think
Right.
we become this frail, weak thing because of traditions of men and luxury, but not because our body can't do. And we some of the best runners in the world are right. They're from Africa and they run barefoot.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you've got it.
So
You can do it. You just gotta harden your body to those elements, and we don't do that anymore.
two of the things I always do when I train people, and it's been a long time. I don't really train people anymore, um, but whether it's strength and conditioning or it's martial arts, two of the things I always do is I make them do basic rolls, like barrel rolls, arm reach, legs, and just arms and legs straight, because that's a primitive pattern. It's part of it's part of the pattern where you learn from your head, right? It's the cephalocaudal proximal distal effect, essentially. So cephalocaudal being the cephalus being the head, and the caudal being the coccyx. You will learn to move from your head down to your tailbone. That's how you start. All babies do that. What's the first thing babies do? They go from their back to their tummy. They learn how to roll. Grown men and women have forgotten how to do that. The muscles that are supposed to drive them to do that are weak. And the other thing is crawl. And what's the first thing a baby does? They crawl. They have almost no muscle mass. They don't weigh a lot. They got to hold their head up
Mhm.
and they crawl. You would be surprised how healthful that is and what that does, and also how poorly people can do this. And it's a fundamental basic movement. So you want to talk about squats?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've lost the squat. A lot of people have. What about like that? Like just
Th
rolling on the ground
Yeah,
or
that's
crawling?
crazy.
And I mean, I smoke dudes with that, like literally.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
I'd still do it as a reset and as a thing of strength and get everything together. But I've literally smoked dudes with ground crawls.
we
Um,
do this thing in jujitsu sometimes, where you lay on your back, and they call it like the invisible boulder. And it's like you got your feet up, almost like you're doing a crunch, and it's like you're holding like a ball, but you're on your back, and you rotate your shoulders and hips. At basically you're crawling on your back. It's like
yeah, yeah.
a we call them twisties, but and it's surprising how long it takes a lot of people to learn how to do that because it's so much core work that you don't really do.
We do well, at least in Russian martial arts, or at least in the styles I've studied, we do a thing called butt walks.
Hmm.
So you get up on your butt and you have your legs like this, your feet
Yeah.
off the ground, and you're learning to shimmy your hips to
Yeah.
walk across the floor.
Mhm.
And that gets you in touch with your hips. That teaches you how to strike better, teach you how to
Yeah.
move your hips when you're on the ground. Um, there's a bunch of stuff there. I mean, there's all kinds of different rolls and leg threads. When you get into like when you get into like the Kalashnikov Russian martial arts, they are really big on low acrobatics. Scott Sonnen teaches a lot of the same stuff because what he taught with his company Armax or whatever was out of the combat sambo camp, which is an offshoot of that. That's the Ross system. He was actually the only official Ross representative back in the day, under General Rotensky. And actually had a buddy do a seminar with General Rotensky not long ago, and he said he said he was kind of embarrassed for him, but Rotensky's really old. So,
Yeah.
anyways, you won't know what I'm talking about, but anyone out there might know. Um, he he created this whole sportive combative martial arts system for the Russian military, essentially,
Yeah.
and it's a big part of sambo and combat sambo.
Hmm.
So, but they do these low acrobatics where they dive and roll around the ground and do all this stuff. In fact, the guy I'm certified for, Kevin Sikors, did the mocap of Splinter Cell Black Ops of what's his name? The guy from Splinter Cell. I can't even recall
Oh
his name.
God, you got to dust that one off. I'm not sure.
I don't know, man. I mean, I
Yeah.
only played the first game back in the
Yeah.
day, and that was like super. You had to be stealth all the time and whatever. I don't really game anymore. But Kevin did all that because he did all the rolling and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Kevin is awesome as far as like actual combative martial arts and not just sportive stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, my point being is that um, yeah, there's all these different movements to get you to how to move your body, and they do that primarily to make you strong.
Hmm.
Like because if you don't know how to move your own body through time and space, what else are you gonna do? Hey, look, my wife is giving us diamonds again. I don't really know why she's doing
Hey.
that. Hey, thanks for giving me money, honey. Thanks for paying the bills. Um, but yeah, there's just so much out there, and I don't see. Well, for instance, how many people? And I do it. Don't get me wrong, but I try to be active, or I'm trying to get more active, I should say, because I used to be really active. Um, it's hard after you get injured for a while too, and you're like you get lazy because you can't do anything. But how many people do you know that don't mind parking far away in a parking lot? Like, how many more little scooters do we have to see at the mall
Oh yeah.
or at
Oh yeah.
Walmart?
Hmm. Yeah.
I was coming out of Audi once, and the car next to me was this old man and his wife was like 5'3", and she had to be over 400 pounds,
Ooh.
and she fell and couldn't get herself up. And when I say old man, I mean he was probably between 60 and 70. So not that old, but old, right? And she couldn't get herself up and she couldn't get herself in the car. And I was trying to help him, also trying to be polite and not like grab his wife and rip her up or whatever. But he was all too frail and too weak to help her. And she had fell off her walker, fell over, couldn't get herself in the car. And it was just this whole big travesty. And I'm like, maybe, maybe you shouldn't eat for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to do something different. And I'm not trying to be cruel here, folks, but this is the state of our geriatrics, of our old folks, not all of them. I mean, I have a great aunt right now that she's in her 90s and she's been living on her own for quite a long time. And maybe, according to my mom, she's kind of deteriorating a little bit now, um, but she's always been active, always been on her own, always been mobile. At least since her husband died. Um, like you got to keep moving.
Mhm.
You got to keep exercising. You got until you just can't. And you got to think about your future and your health and all that stuff. So I don't know, man. I know it's getting to be about the bottom of the hour here. So
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, it's probably a good place to stop. We kind of talked about what we want to talk about, so yeah, it is what it
well, I can
is.
talk about this crap forever
Yeah,
because I mean, I'm. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've fallen from grace on it. I've been up and down over the years,
yeah,
and since I jacked up my knee the other year, I've been a little bit lazy. I've been
hmm,
in and out with working out. It's been more about consistency.
yeah,
But but yeah, I'm a bit of a even though I'm not the healthiest person all the time or whatever, I'm a bit passionate about this subject because
yeah.
it just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. And people in the free healthcare thing, they're like, you know, I had this argument with a friend years ago, and he finally came around to it because I tried to explain to him that saying that someone has to provide healthcare for you is saying that they're your slave. And what do you do when you're in the woods? Does a doctor have to fix your arm? Now, he should morally, I think, yes, by his choice, though, not because you put a gun in his face and say, you're going to fix my arm because it's broken. And that's what government health care is, actually. Or it's VA care or it's reservation care, which is just absolutely abysmal. And I can tell you, I've been to the VA like twice. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
very bad. It's very bad. So I don't know, bud. Got anything else?
That uh, don't eat carbs, everyone. I guess that's it.
Eat less carbs.
Eat less carbs. Eat less.
I'd say stay away from gluten. If you don't have a
Yeah,
problem with it, maybe not a big deal, but that's an issue. I think for me, is why I was having gut issues.
yeah,
Um, I do all right with rice, so potatoes. Um, beer, beer, major carb source.
yeah. That's one of my main issues. Is I love beer
Yeah.
so much. I love sodas too, and I really try my best not to drink them, but I do it every once in a while.
It's funny because I didn't drink a lot when I was younger, and the older I
Mm.
get, the more I'm like, not that I'm like drinking like ridiculous, but I definitely have a tolerance, so I can drink a lot
Yeah, yeah, for
if I
sure.
drink. And yeah, so I'm glad to have a sober October,
Mhm.
and probably won't pick it up much other than watching fights and maybe on the stream here
Yeah.
when the month's over
That's
because
really that's all I ever drink is on the stream. Like I maybe once on the weekends, but really I just gotta drink on the stream.
my thing is I don't drink when I'm working typically, and I
Hmm.
haven't been working,
Yeah,
so it'd be like days off, and so
yeah.
you're sitting around the house, it's like, get some
Why not?
beer.
It's 11 a.m. Let's go ahead and crack. Yeah, I've been there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. This if you've made it this far, this Sunday we're gonna have Kizza GT on the show, 3 p.m. Eastern. That is 8 p.m. GMT, his time. And we had him on a couple weeks back. I think I'm gonna get a hold of Yiz too, and maybe speak with her, maybe get her on the show again. And some other people. I actually need to get a hold of I want to get a hold of Rebecca from Beauty and the Beta fame.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure she'd be willing to come on the stream, especially since I've had a relationship with them for a while.
Yeah.
And of course, after Matt is done being married, which I think is this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
I might be able to get him on. So that'd be
Awesome.
fun.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, and I do need to reach out. I'd like to try and get Romy Millennial. I might have to pull her
Mm-hmm.
arm because she's busy,
Yeah.
very, very busy. But this weekend, guys, we're gonna have Kiz on, and he's gonna talk about how he's gonna fix the UK. And I don't know. That's pretty much it. So I guess with that, the ends justify the memes, folks. You can find us replays on YouTube. The ends justify the memes. We're here on D Live. The ends underscore justify underscore memes. You can watch me on YouTube. All minus one. That's all pre-recorded stuff. Most of it's long, but I'm coming up with a new segment here soon. Hopefully, it's fun. And with that, just remember the ends always justify those memes. You can play that outro, Tank.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah. Macho Madness, yes, got more to offer than President Jack Tunney thinks